DawgsHQ senior editor Jake Rowe, you just got out of a pretty interesting meeting with Kirby Smart and Josh Brooks, and it's not the typical kind of press availability that reporters get on the beat. What happened today in relation to Georgia dealing with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution?
All right, let me hit some bullet points here. First of all, this was couched by Georgia as Kirby Smart's idea to get out in front of this. And Georgia, with lack of a better way to say it, explicitly is taking issue with the way that Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported the rallying around its players with sexual assault and abuse allegations. Kirby Smart was present and gave a statement. So did Josh Brooks, was also there. Deputy Senior Athletic Director Darice Griffin was also in attendance, and so was the head of Georgia's Equal Opportunity Office, Kiana Wilson. And all four of those gave opening statement. All four of those individuals gave opening statements, and then it was opened up for questions. The AJC had two representatives there. They were asking questions. Never got combative or anything like that. But I think overall, we know how Georgia feels about the way the AJC has reported those stories. Honestly, I feel like some of the reporting we've done has also kind of combated those stories. And now that we know what Georgia thinks about it, because that's just kind of what the nature of today was, I feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it, not from like a legal or whatever standpoint, just because I was trying to be respectful and not become a part of the story. But now that Georgia has stated its frustrations with the way that the AJC has handled this situation with a letter of 4,200 plus words now demanding a retraction from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Let's get elbow deep in this thing and talk about it.
Okay, so you provided the police report with no context not long after Alan Judd's piece came out from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And that went over really well with a lot of Georgia's fans, but the difference between what you put out there and what the AJC's report on Jamal Jarrett was that we didn't editorialize any of it. So, like you said, now that we know how Georgia feels about it and where Georgia stands on this, what is Georgia's biggest issue with the coverage of that story? Not just Jamal Jarrett's report, but the entire article that the AJC put out.
I think it's bias. I think it's sensationalizing. I think it's all of those things. And listen, I'm not here making accusations towards anybody, but I will say this. There's a reason that I read that report from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which I'm going to go ahead and say, like, maybe context could have been added in some of the traffic stories or whatever, but they did a lot of boots on the ground, extremely hard work. And I thought that a lot of what they brought to light is something that is a problem at Georgia, and Kirby Smart acknowledged that, and that's kind of the reckless behavior on the roads. Is it abnormal? Is it crazy bad compared to other programs? We don't know because that comparison wasn't made. So maybe that's the one critique I would have of any of it. But ultimately, what I see is I see that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution kind of stepped out into a different realm to kind of continue the narrative, basically. And I'm not saying it was an unfounded narrative, that they had this that Georgia has this permissive culture, this reckless culture. They stepped into an area that I think got really wobbly on them really fast, because I read that Adam Anderson report. I'm sorry, not the Adam Anderson report. I read that Jamal Jarrett report, which included things about Adam Anderson, and they blatantly got something wrong on the Adam Anderson issue. Is when the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Alan Judd reported that after with the case with Adam Anderson drawing unwanted attention, Georgia dismissed Adam Anderson or suspended Adam Anderson from competition. That's factually incorrect. Georgia suspended Adam Anderson that Monday. That came on our radar at the time, not here at DawgsHQ. I was somewhere else, and it came on my radar at the time. I spent the next couple of days trying to figure out what the heck was going on, took a shot in the dark, grabbed a report, an incident report, made a report for Adam Anderson with the Athens Clarke County PD, got the incident report back, and then I knew what was going on. And that was on Thursday. And I didn't even report it on Thursday. Somebody else reported it Thursday, I believe, after Georgia got off the practice field. So playing fast and loose, maybe a little bit with the comment or with the reporting there is what kind of made my ears perk up. And then I pulled the police report on Jamal Jarrett, and that's when we kind of saw two differing narratives. And I want to point something out, Wes, that I think that listen, I think Alan Judd's been respectful in his interviews and hasn't really, taken any shots at us, and I appreciate that. And I don't want to take any shots at him, but I do want to say this: he's not the only person that watched the investigation videos. Not only did I watch those investigation videos, but I put those investigation videos in front of people that I know have expertise in those areas and asked them, hey, what was done wrong here? Do you see any discrepancies? And a couple of people told me straight up, I agree with you. I don't see any issue here as far as this goes. And that's why we felt really comfortable just running that police report and letting people decide for themselves.
You can read everything that you obtain from a Freedom of Information Act request on this article, on this demand for the retraction. And it's signed by Georgia's General Counsel, Mike Raber. One point here in this write-up, it's pretty long, like you said, over 4,000 words. But this is from the request for retraction. Mr. Judd's article is replete with errors, unsubstantiated allegations, innuendo, and possibly even fabrications. We do not write to you lightly. We are accustomed to the rough scrutiny of a robust press, and we appreciate its central importance in a free society, but this article stands out in its reckless disregard for the truth and its imposition of a damaging narrative unsupported by the facts. The AJC's newsroom ethics code states, in our news reports, we do not lie, we do not fabricate, and we do not distort images or audio in a manner that is misleading. Yet several parts of Mr. Judd's article beg the very concerning conclusion that aspects of his reporting are indeed fabricated, whether knowingly or recklessly. So, like you mentioned to start here, this is something that Kirby Smart called by invitation only to Georgia's press that was able to attend. You and I know Kirby Smart doesn't want any kind of distraction that has nothing to do with football. So the fact that this is even out there and this even happened today shows me that Georgia is not taking this lightly. What did you take away from what you actually heard Kirby and Josh Brooks and anybody else that was on the panel today when they were actually asked about this outside of this letter to the AJC?
They are they're defending themselves, and I don't know that I would take the posture as defensive. Maybe a tone of defensiveness on their part. Sometimes it's hard not to be when you're dealing with kind of the things that they've dealt with here. But I heard Kirby Smart admit multiple times, hey, listen, what we're doing as far as speeding and reckless driving is not enough. Okay. They're not getting through to the players. They know that. He also brought up something that we're going to write about here at DawgsHQ a little bit later, and that's a player, an unnamed player, but a leader on the team speaking up in a team meeting after the Samuel Mpemba, the most recent speeding ticket, he spoke up and he really kind of gave it to the team about how disrespected he feels and how disrespectful it is to disrespectful, it is to the memory of Devin Willock that these players keep, kind of driving this recklessly. And he talked about how that was very moving and emotional for the team. And hopefully that is a kind of watershed moment for them and that they slow down. I don't want to see anybody else get hurt in this whole thing. And honestly, I think that's something we all need to understand is, I think Alan Judd would be of the same feeling of that. I think Chip Towers and everybody at the AJC would love not to ever have to cover another tragedy like that. I know I wouldn't. I know you wouldn't. Nobody wants to have to do that. And I think the best way to do that is to, be a little bit more safer on the roads and not drive like the Georgia players have been driving. Kirby Smart also pointed to how, listen, it's not the number of speeding tickets, it's how much over the speed limit these guys are going. He was asked to, whether it was an NIL thing. He said no. You can't blame it on that. It's a problem that they put on themselves, and they take full blame for that. The tone of this whole thing, though, Wes, was, hey, listen, if you're saying, and I'm speaking, let's imagine for a second, let's role play. I'm University of Georgia. If you're saying that we don't take abuse and sexual assault allegations seriously, then you're mistaken. And they explained their procedure behind that. That's what Darice Griffin was there for, is because Darice is the Title IX coordinator. deputy athletic director, and so she's there. Kiana Wilson is also there. She made the comment that Georgia over-reports when it comes to such issues, and I think Georgia is doing its best to get out in front of this, because there's this narrative that came out after that story last week is that, hey, Georgia's letting sexual predators in. And one of the reasons I didn't put that police report out because I wanted to help the University of Georgia out. I knew that there was people that would probably kind of say, oh, well, it is what it is. And this kid still looks bad. I put it out there just because I wanted people to decide, hey, do you think this kid's a sexual predator or not? And, Georgia's not harboring those guys. That's their message, is that they're, listen, they take these things seriously. They took the Adam Anderson thing seriously. They took the Jeremiah Holloman thing seriously. And now they're taking the overall image of the program seriously, to a point that they feel comfortable enough that they're really to kind of speak out against the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And, I don't want to say good on them, because I don't know 100% if they're right or not. But what I do know is they're not going to take it laying down.
The timing of this is interesting to me because SEC Media Days is coming up next week, and Kirby Smart is, I presume, going to have to answer more of these questions. Part of me wonders, and I'm not asking you to answer this, I'm just wondering out loud here, is this something that Georgia did so Kirby Smart could say, I've already addressed all that last week, I'm focusing on the team? I know how Kirby is pretty savvy with the media, and I don't think he'll shy away from anything necessarily, but it is interesting that they do seemingly get ahead of the wave of questions that are going to come in about this next week. And you're not asking Georgia necessarily about back-to-back national championships. There are going to be a lot of people that are trying to dig deeper on this. And you know how SEC Media Days goes. It's not always the people that cover the team day in and day out that get a chance to ask the head coach the questions and the players the questions. So that's going to be interesting to see how Georgia plays off of this. What do you think's next in this? Do you think?
Well, to your point, I do think that there's an element of that, by the way. I mean, I do. But I also think dedicating 50, 55 minutes of time to hash this out, to get it all out in the open, is something that you couldn't do at SEC Media Days. There would be, let's face it, Wes, there would be 2 questions on that subject, and then one about, what's your kicker's favorite candy? Yep. That's kind of, that's going to come in there too. So it would be hard to kind of sit there and focus on the issue. I applaud the time they took, the detail, and the people that they invited to this, and kind of let everybody. The Associated Press was there, the Athletic and Rivals and 24/7 and us, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Athens Banner Herald, ESPN. Was there, Dog Post, everybody was there that covers the team on a regular basis. They wanted it, they kept it small, but they were also thorough in the same vein. And ultimately, this was to kind of get that out there and just to really dedicate some time to sitting down and hashing this out before they get to SEC Media Days. There's no doubt in my mind that was part of the planning here. And I think it's a good move ultimately to kind of maybe put this in the rear view, going forward.
Yeah, that's my question ultimately to wrap this up. What do you think's next? Do you think this is Georgia just trying to wrap it up on their end and letting the pieces fall where they may on the AJC's front, whether they retract it or not?
I think that's what Georgia hopes will happen. I think that they hope that this will kind of put an end to it. Hard to say whether that's going to be the case or not. If I feel like, as hard as the AJC is looking at Georgia right now, right or wrong, I don't care to get into an argument with anybody about whether I think that's right or wrong, because what I think does not matter really. What I will say is that when you're looking as hard at something as they are, I think we've found that you can find something. I don't think Georgia has any massive skeletons in the closet. Let's be honest. If Georgia thought it had some massive skeletons in the closet, it could say, Bryant Gant, you're going under the chopping block right now, and you're going to take one for the team. It's not doing that. They're defending him because I think they feel comfortable about where they're at. Ultimately, I don't know that this thing is over, but I do think that the flame is a lot dimmer than it was at one point, and we'll see how it plays out. I do know that it's a strong statement to come out with 4,200 words, 4,300 words on hey, take this back. go ahead and take it back right now. And that's what they want. And they feel like they're entitled to it. And, um, you know, folks don't normally make news with that sort of thing if they're not really, upset about something and feel pretty good about where they stand.
Yeah, for sure. Jake, thanks for keeping everyone up to speed on this from DawgsHQ. You can read all of what Georgia wrote to the AJC and, as Jake mentioned, the full police report that came out a few days ago, rather, as well. Appreciate it, Jake.
You got it, man.